As you're talking, the great Merton quote kind of came to my mind. To be a sane is to be myself.
I love that line.
What does that quote mean to you, having just journeyed through this, and perhaps what could that mean to others who face a transitus, a period of transition where things are opening up, even though it may not feel like that?
Yeah, I do love that quote as well, and I think you're exactly right. It can be kind of caricatured, right? And people, the worst way to interpret that, in my opinion, is to say like, oh, I can just continue doing what I'm doing and who I am, and everything is fine. And Merton meant the
Yes.
exact opposite, right?
Yes. Yep.
And drawing inspiration actually from Francis of Assisi's 19th admonition, uh, Thomas Merton was saying, what it means to be myself is to be my true self. And to borrow language from Francis, what that means is to be who I am in the eyes of God. So, what I am before God, that I am, and nothing less and nothing more. And I think actually a lot of us spend a lot of time trying to be something other than we are. Merton talks about this in some ways. It is tied to kind of the effects of original sin, that we don't trust that we're lovable or likable by God. We also live in a world that's affected by sin. And so we tear each other down. We set up these expectations for one another that are unrealistic and oftentimes unfair, sometimes even dehumanizing. And so that false self, or false selves, maybe more accurately, that Merton talks about, I think is also something Francis and his followers recognize, that who we are before God is all that matters. But in order to get to that identity, in order to recognize it, we have to pursue God, right? You can't know who we are before God by just living in our own world, or kind of consulting with what social media says we are, or what have you. And so I think that's really really key, is recognizing that who we are before God is what God is calling us to be. And that if we are pursuing our true selves, and this is something Thomas Merton makes clear, we can never really know our true selves fully, at least not in this world, but we can trust that God does. And so, how do we know we're on the right path? Are we right with God? Are we pursuing God, following God, recognizing God, in dialogue with God, seeing God in the world around us, and trusting that. It sounds so simple. I mean, even as I'm hearing myself speak, I'm like, oh, well, that sounds almost like a platitude, but living it is so much harder, isn't it? It's we'd like the easier answers, we'd like the direct kind of comments, and that's not typically how God operates.